Since 1901, Jewish National Fund has made its mark all across the land of Israel. JNF built communities where there once was only sand, found water solutions for an arid land, created jobs throughout the country, and turned the desert green. Every footprint that Jewish National Fund makes, that you make, starts with a strategic vision of a better future for Israel, its people, and the Jewish people everywhere. These footprints tell the stories of Israel's rich history and create a path for the Jewish leaders of tomorrow to follow. In the North, we are changing the narrative to entice people to move and create a home for tomorrow's generations.
The entire region is coming to life through food, agriculture, tourism. This is the place to be.
Look at this place. My business is thriving. It means that more people have jobs and we have the chance to live in this beautiful place. What can be better?
In the center of Israel, our footprint helps immigrants new and old. Nefesh B'Nefesh helps Olim launch their new lives in Israel.
When I made Aliyah, this hub helped ease my transition into living in Israel. It helped me build a community, find a job, and make friends. I can't thank you enough.
On the border with Gaza, JNF went where no man had set foot before, and from sand, created life.
JNF's footprint is everywhere. You helped us build medical center, greenhouses, kindergartens, daycare centers, women business centers, playgrounds, synagogues, and much more. All that to keep our Zionist future and spirit alive.
In the Arava Valley, deep in the Negev Desert, we have become a world leader in agricultural and environmental innovations.
You helped us turn even the most barren region into fruitful farmland.
In the Negev Desert, we are creating a new South.
Ben-Gurion had a dream that Beersheba will become the capital of the South. Jewish National Fund has made Ben-Gurion's vision a reality.
With every footstep, every blueprint, every vision and development, Jewish National Fund paints the entire canvas of Israel with vibrant, pioneering colors. We live our values by helping those in need. In the greater Sderot area, we provide young people with resilience centers and a safe place to simply be kids, away from the trauma. We provide educational opportunities for youth of all ages and prepare them to be the Jewish leaders of tomorrow at our semester abroad high school in Israel. We have made a home for the heroes who safeguard the region. And we are not stopping. Soon, Be'er Sheva will become home to the great conversations of Israel's future, of our future. The JNF Israel Education and Technology Campus will leave the largest footprint of them all as it prepares our youth to lead the Jewish community of tomorrow. Be a part. Leave your footprint in Israel with us. Jewish National Fund. We are unique, we are strategic, we are visionary. And we've been that way since 1901. Join us.
Dear friends and fellow Jewish National Fund supporters, welcome to our nation's capital and Jewish National Fund's 2019 National Conference. My name is Janie Klein, and I'm proud to be co-chairing this year's conference with my good friend, Gary Kushner. We're here to celebrate the many accomplishments of Jewish National Fund over the past year and to plan for the year to come. I know you'll understand if I can't help but think back to last year's conference when I stood on the stage of the opening plenary with my late husband, Andy. as he received a Heritage Award from Russell for his dedication and love of Israel and Jewish National Fund. JNF and Giving from the Heart were passions of Andy's, and my children and I hope to continue his legacy and honor his memory. He loved his JNF family so much and was so proud to be part of an organization that took such good care of his beloved Israel. He was serious about being Jewish and repairing the world, and JNF was his voice in Israel. And my family and I appreciate all the love and support we felt this past year from you, our JNF family, and it's a great comfort to know that Andy's legacy will live on in the history of Jewish National Fund.
Janie, Andy is deeply missed by us all. He was a very special man. Thank you and your family for your generosity in sponsoring today's Open Plenary, in which we celebrate the U.S.-Israel relationship.
It's incredible to see so many people gathered here today, and especially notable is how many younger attendees we have. We have over 1,200 people joining us at this year's conference, and over 500 are under the age of 40. Including 350 students. If you're under the age of 40, will you please stand up? Yeah, that's a lot of people. Thank you all for being here today. You are our future leaders and will be instrumental in continuing JNF's mission of ensuring a strong and prosperous Israel for generations to come. I also want to recognize all JNF National Conference first-timers. Please stand so we can recognize you.
Over the next few days, we are in for some exciting plenaries, captivating speakers, and the opportunity to connect with our fellow Jewish National Fund family members, many of whom we probably haven't seen since last year's conference. Don't miss out on the great programming we have in store for you, and please remember to wear your official conference badges at all times. Before we move on with our program, we want to take a moment to recognize the 18th anniversary of the September 11th terror attacks, as it was commemorated this past Wednesday at JNF's 9/11 Memorial outside Jerusalem.
Existing memorials in Ground Zero, here in Jerusalem and elsewhere throughout the world, become symbols not just of a tragic loss, but also of a great victory of good over evil. Let these memorials be testaments to the two words we all vowed after the defeat of Nazi Germany: never again.
Now I'd like to turn the podium over to the force behind Humans of JNF and a very generous JNF World Chairman's Council, Negev Society, and Circle of Sapphire Plus Society member, Viv Grossman. What the heck?
Larry and Jane. I am so thrilled to be here with everybody. This is going to be an amazing weekend. But first and foremost, as the Social Media Committee co-chair and Vice President of Marketing for Jewish National Fund, I'd like to urge all of you to spread the word, spread the word about the incredible time we're having and will have over the weekend by posting updates on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Please use the hashtags JNFNC19 and powered by JNF. You can see what everyone is saying live over there on our fabulous tint boards. So be seen and make yourself heard. Now, it's my honor to introduce one of our very special guests today, the Governor of Maryland, Larry Hogan. Currently serving his second term, Governor Hogan is recognized nationally as a strong, independent leader who consistently delivers real results and achieves common sense bipartisan solutions. He, much like JNF, has worked tirelessly toward initiatives to provide clean water, reduce pollution, and to educate the youth on environmental issues. Governor Hogan is a staunch supporter, a staunch advocate for the State of Israel, and during his visit there in 2016, planted a tree in JNF's Neot Kidduim. During that trip, he also signed the Sister State Memorandum of Understanding between Maryland and the Negev region. And just recently, Governor Hogan signed an executive order strengthening Maryland's opposition to the BDS movement against Israel and has been steadfast in his pursuit against those efforts. We are so lucky to have him here with us today. Please join me in welcoming Governor Larry Hogan.
Wow, thank you all very much. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Viv, thank you very much. It's really an honor to be here this afternoon. First of all, I want to begin by recognizing my friend, Ambassador Ron Dermer. I was just hanging out backstage with him. Look, I'm just the warm-up act, I think, for him. He's coming up next. Also, U.S. State Department Special Envoy, Elan Carr. And let's give him a round of applause. Thank you, Elan. Ronald Lauder, President of the World Jewish Congress. And I want to thank JNF's President, Dr. Saul Leeser Bram, and CEO Russell Robinson. Let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for the important and visionary work that JNF does to build a bright future for Israel and its people. And I also want to especially recognize your conference co-chairs who were up here just a moment ago, Gary Kushner and Janie Klein. I'm very proud to say that both of them are Marylanders, so I don't know how many Marylanders we have, but how about a little Maryland? And Janie, let me just take a moment on behalf of all of the people of Maryland to again extend our deepest sympathies to you and your family on the tragic loss of Andy earlier this year. Andy Klein was not just beloved by all of you at JNF for his incredible work on behalf of this great organization, but by literally everyone who had the honor to know him. Andy was selfless, generous, and so incredibly passionate about helping others. And while he will continue to be deeply missed, he will not ever be forgotten. Andy's enduring legacy will continue to live on through Janie and the rest of his loving family, through all of you and the important work of JNF, and through the countless lives that he touched through his remarkable life. We're very proud of the long shared history between Maryland and Israel, going back to when the famous ship Exodus sailed from Baltimore's harbor on its historic mission to rescue Holocaust survivors in Europe and take them to the Jewish homeland. Every day that I have been Maryland's governor, I have been a strong supporter and advocate, not just for Maryland's Jewish community, but also for the state of Israel, which is one of America's best and most important allies. As was mentioned, I was proud to lead a trade mission to Israel where we ratified an MOU between Tel Aviv University and UMBC to promote academic cooperation and collaboration between the two universities. We signed an MOU between the University of Maryland and the Hebrew University of Jerusalem to encourage joint research. And we renegotiated, as was just mentioned, the first ever sister state relationship between the state of Maryland and the Negev region, which is, as you know, the cyber security hub of Israel now, to share information and technology that would strengthen the security of Israel and further solidify Maryland's standing as the cyber capital of America. Maryland's collaboration with Israel has produced notable achievements in medicine, healthcare, biotechnology, and important advancements to defense, cyber industry, and our homeland and national security. New partnerships with great Israeli companies like Elta Systems, Via Pharma, Nayax, Cyberbit, and Rada Electronics has meant more jobs for Marylanders. And even though the main focus of our trade mission was economic development, we also got the incredible opportunity to experience time in Old Jerusalem and visit the Western Wall, where I got to pray and take part in the sacred tradition of placing a prayer note in the wall. We shared a wonderful Shabbat dinner, and as Viv mentioned, I was proud to take part in a tree planting ceremony with the JNF, planting a tree in memory of the late Governor Marvin Mandel, who was my good friend and Maryland's only Jewish governor. Our entire trip to Israel was incredible, but the most memorable experience was my visit to the Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial in Jerusalem, where I participated in a wreath-laying ceremony in remembrance of the more than 6 million victims of the Holocaust. I was moved to tears, and it truly was an experience that I will not ever forget. I want you to know that I know that what brings every one of you together for this conference every year is your strong connection to and your unwavering support for Israel. In Maryland, we have worked tirelessly these past 5 years to strengthen our already strong relationship with Israel. I have strongly and repeatedly made it very clear that Maryland will stand steadfast in solidarity with Israel against the BDS movement. In 2017, I signed an executive order prohibiting all executive state agencies or departments from entering into any contracts with any business unless that business certifies that they will not engage in a boycott of Israel. Recently, I had the honor of being elected by my colleagues as the chairman of the National Governors Association. And in leading the nation's governors, I will work together with both Republicans and Democrats to reinforce our nation's commitment to supporting our closest allies, beginning with the State of Israel. I will encourage the leaders in every state to follow our lead by taking actions to protect Jewish communities and schools. In Maryland, we enacted legislation which established a fund to make grants for security-related projects available to schools and child care centers determined to be at risk of certain hate crimes or attacks. Sadly, we've seen far too many brutal acts of anti-Semitism, bigotry, and hatred in our nation. Last October, we were all heartbroken when 11 members of the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh became the victims of an unconscionable and violent act of hatred. I immediately reached out to Governor Wolf, our neighbor in Pennsylvania, and to leaders of our Jewish community all across the state to offer not just our prayers, but also whatever assistance we could possibly provide. And I immediately directed Maryland state law enforcement agencies to increase their patrols and their vigilance in protecting our synagogues and places of worship. The right of each and every one of us to worship and practice our faith freely is a founding pillar of our democracy. Our synagogues and other places of worship must never become places of fear. An attack like that, which cuts at the very heart of our values as Americans and as human beings, is not just an attack on the Jewish people, but an attack on all of us. Hate has no place in our society, and together we must stand united and firm in our conviction that no amount of evil can divide us, and no amount of evil can destroy the Jewish people or our great nation. In this battle between good and evil, there can only be one side to stand on, and that is to stand for love and goodness, justice, and unity. Ladies and gentlemen, in spite of all the things that work to tear us apart, I still believe that what unites us truly is greater than that which divides us. The Jewish tradition teaches the concept of tikkun olam, that individual acts of goodness can help to heal a broken world, that small acts of kindness and decency truly can make a real difference. It says that each and every one of us has a responsibility to try to fix a little piece of what's wrong with our world. The best way to change hearts and minds, to end the inexplicable hate, is by showing love and kindness and leading by example. Andy Klein certainly believed that, and that is the way he lived his life. His daughter Rachel said her dad did and gave everything to anyone who needed anything. Janie said that whatever he did, he put his whole heart into it. What an incredible and inspiring legacy to leave behind. Each and every one of us has the opportunity to do something great and to try to fix a little piece of what's wrong with our world, just as Andy Klein did his whole life, and as the JNF does every single day. You give a vision and a voice to Jewish people everywhere. It has been an honor to work alongside you and to support you. And I want each and every one of you to know that I will continue standing with the JNF, and I will continue standing up and fighting for the Jewish community in Maryland and all across America, and that I will continue to stand proudly with the State of Israel. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Hogan, for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to join us here today, and for everything you do to strengthen the U.S.-Israel alliance. My name is Tony Dusick, and I'm the Vice President of the Israel Relations Committee on the National Board. I'm also a proud member of the Century Council, President's Society, and Circle of Sapphire. I'm delighted to have the honor of introducing our next guest. Ron Dermer has served with distinction as Israel's ambassador to the United States since 2013. In this capacity, he has fortified the U.S.-Israel relationship and continues to do so with dignity and respect. He has seen firsthand the work that Jewish National Fund does in Israel, and we are very fortunate to call him a friend. The ambassador has requested that rather than delivering a speech, he engage with us in a less formal setting by being interviewed. Therefore, I now welcome to the stage Ambassador Ron Dermer, together with the Israeli-American journalist and TV host, Michelle Divon.
Hello, Mr. Ambassador.
Hello.
Hi, thank you for being here with us today. It's a real privilege.
Privileged to be here. Let me say thank you to the JNF. It wasn't mentioned before, but my father, my late father, who passed away 35 years ago, he was the chairman of JNF in Miami a long, long time ago. So there's a good chance that one of you may have a child one day, or a grandchild one day, who in a few years will be Israel's ambassador to the United States. And thank you for the terrific work you do to strengthen the state of Israel.
אם תרצו אין זו אגדה.
נכון.
I mentioned to JNF Future this morning that last week, during a visit to Portugal, I was asked by my tour guide if it's true that we made the desert bloom. Now, to me, this is a narrative that I grew up with, and I said, of course, but it's quite remarkable. We did make the desert bloom. However, not enough, because we're still seeing the majority of Israel's population living in the center, and by 2048, Israel's population is set to reach 15 million people. So I want to ask you, how critical is it that we see greater population movement to Israel's Negev and Galil that we know, of course, the JNF is very much working to do?
Yes, and I want to thank the JNF specifically for doing it. This was a vision, as all of you know, of Ben-Gurion to populate the Negev. I think the last time I checked the numbers, the Negev itself is about 65% of our territory, and about 10% of our population live there. So there was this vision that you have this huge swath of territory, and we have to make sure that the Israeli people will move there in big numbers, and it never happened. And I think one of the reasons why it did not happen in the past was the model for how you do it was not correct. What they did is they set up development towns, sometimes with industries coming in that Israel did not have a competitive advantage in, and they had development towns, and I always used to ask myself, is there a statute of limitations on the term development towns? Because eventually, if the town's not developing, then it's not a development town. And the main problem is we had a lack of infrastructure. So you didn't have roads and rails that allowed people to live in the Negev and to be able to go and travel around the country. And so it was really not attractive. So what the government has done with the support, and this organization probably as much as anyone has supported those efforts, is build the infrastructure. You know, remember that movie, If You Build It, They Will Come? Well, we built it, and we're building it, and they're coming. And they're coming in much bigger numbers. And so you have fast rail, and you have roads. And there's a housing issue in Israel. The cost of housing, as you know, is very high in Israel. So when you have the housing differentials in Tel Aviv versus what it is in the Negev, it pays actually to live in those communities for young families as long as they can get back and forth to work very quickly. And instead of investing in industries that really have no future in Israel, what we've done is we've also turned the center of the Negev, which is Beersheba, into a center for one of the most important industries for Israel that is developing, which is cyber. Now, Israel is a global cyber power. We're not a regional cyber power, we're a global cyber power. We account, Israel, for 0.1% of the world's population. In the last 2 or 3 years, we have attracted 20% of global private investment in cyber. So Israel's punching 200 times above its weight. And the center of that is actually in Beersheba, where actually the small size of our country, which is a huge problem strategically and for security, but it's a huge advantage in innovation. Because in a very small area, you can bring in a top-rate university like Ben-Gurion University. We also have military assets which we pull down into the Negev, like military intelligence, which is not an oxymoron in Israel. They're really, really smart. And we bring them down to the Negev, and then you have businesses, a cyber park. And it's really become a center of innovation. And there's a lot of other industries, water, as you know, where Israel's a world leader in water. We recycle about 90%. Number 2 in the world, I think, if this is still true, is Spain is about 20%. So there's a huge gap between Israel and the other countries. And I think as long as we build it right, people will come, and that's what we're doing. And we appreciate very much the partnership of JNF in making that possible.
Thank you. I have to say, as an Israeli, I wasn't aware of the extent of what JNF does before moving here, and I'll also echo your word and say thank you for helping build our country.
You have to come to more conferences. Then you find
Absolutely. I plan to. Many organizations are now looking at the challenge of connecting the younger generation, and many are asking the question of what needs to be done. We're seeing many younger American Jews revealing that they themselves feel less connected to Israel. JNF here as well is investing a great deal of money and effort in connecting these students to Israel, especially through the Alexander Muss High School in Israel. But
that's a Miami Beach person. So, look, I want to also say, before you finish the question, I want to thank Governor Hogan, number 1, for his tremendous support for Israel. Number 2, the man did not mention the fact that my Miami Dolphins got destroyed by Baltimore Ravens. It was the most embarrassing loss in our history, which goes to show you that he's a terrific diplomat as well. So I appreciate that very much.
And true gentleman.
Exactly.
Yes. So my question to you is, what can we do? And this is really a question that many are asking. What can we do and what should we do to attract and to better connect the younger Jewish generation to Israel?
Well, look, here's what I'll say. If you're not over the age of 80, you do not remember a world without Israel. Those who remember that world have no problem understanding the importance and the meaning of Israel. If you're not over the age of 60, you don't remember a vulnerable Israel, because all you see is this strong country. And I think it is a natural process where 71 years after the state, you have to sometimes say the most basic things to people and remind them of the most basic things. So in terms of what should be done is first tell them what the world without Israel was like, when we were not a sovereign nation, when we had no voice, when we had no refuge. Anti-Semitism is a big problem around the world. People are asking themselves a lot of questions, but one question people do not ask today is, where are we going to go? And the reason they don't ask that question is because Israel is an answer. It may not be the answer, and of course we want all the governments around the world to protect their own population. But Israel is an answer. That's new. It's because we have a refuge in the state of Israel, which will always be open to Jews across the world. We also have the power to defend ourselves. And that's new. We used to have to beg presidents and prime ministers and kings to protect our population. Since Israel was born 71 years ago, the Jewish people do not beg others to defend them. We defend ourselves. So remind them about what the world without Israel, and I think the birth of Israel made people prouder as Jews around the world. That's clear. I actually think it made Jewish Americans prouder as Americans because you're here by choice, because you do have somewhere you can go. And I think that's not fully understood. So focus on reminding people what it means to be a sovereign, to have a sovereign Jewish state. The second thing is tell them about Israel's security situation, because it's true that we're very powerful. We're also very small. And Israel can go from great strength to great vulnerability very, very fast. And you have to explain it. The other thing is the AJC did a poll a few months ago. 60% of American Jews haven't been to Israel. 60. So one of the things you have to do is bring people to Israel. Now, Israel has done that over the last 20 years, and it actually has moved the numbers. So the people who've been on birthright, and at this point, I don't know if it's 600 or 700,000 people have already been, it makes a difference when people come to Israel and see that reality. And that's something that I think people should continue to invest in doing. And the last thing I'll say is that the main reason why you could have among younger generations less of a connection is because they may be less connected to their Jewish identity. That's the thing that drives it more than anything else. The stronger your Jewish identity is, doesn't matter what synagogue you go to, but the stronger your Jewish identity is, the more you're going to be connected to a Jewish state. For people to think that someone's Judaism is not going to be important to them at all, but all of a sudden Israel will be important to them, I think they're kidding themselves. And a predecessor of mine, Yitzhak Rabin, Zichrono Livracha, when he was ambassador, he was asked, and I know this because I went to a community and I answered a question, what should American Jews do to support Israel? And after I answered the question, which I'll do in a second, they said, you know, Yitzhak Rabin was here 50 years ago and gave the same answer. I say invest in Jewish identity right here in America. If you do that, you will keep the next generation connected to Israel. And I think a lot of people are open now, probably because of the rise of anti-Semitism. A lot of people are looking at it, and I see Elan Carr here, and I want to thank you for your voice of moral clarity in the fight against anti-Semitism.
Thank you. I mentioned Portugal. I met Jewish communities there that for 500 years had to live in secrecy and couldn't live an openly Jewish life. So we are very lucky here, but we do have to remember how important it is, our identity, and that comes first before even Israel. Many people are looking at the Israel-diaspora relationship. We've had our challenges, but Israel and the United States, no matter what, are always the strongest allies. How do you see the diaspora-Israel relationship in 2050? As you mentioned, Israel is now strong. Israel maybe has more to offer. Israel was once more needy. What do you expect in 2050?
So you want me to look 30 years ahead? I'm trying to focus on 3 days ahead, but I'll look 30 years. Look, when Israel was established in 1948, 5% of the world's Jews lived in Israel. There were 12 million Jews around the world, and we were, before the Holocaust, about 18 million. We lost a third of our people were murdered in the Holocaust, and it's hard for people to understand a number like that. That's over the equivalent of over 100 million Americans. And if you can't wrap your mind around that, imagine a 9/11 every day for a century. That's what the Holocaust did for the Jewish people. So you have, or did to the Jewish people, I should say. 12 million, 600,000 of those 12 million are in Israel. And one of them was my mother, was one of those 5%. But we were a very, very small part of the Jewish world. Now, we obviously had a pride of place being in Israel because of the Holy Land and what it means to the Jewish people. But we were a very, very small part of it. Now, fast forward 71 years. Israel is the largest Jewish community in the world today. It's about 43% of the world's Jews live in Israel. It eclipsed the United States, which is second with, I think, around 35% about 10 years ago. And that was the first time that Israel had been the largest Jewish community in the world since the days of Bar Kokhba, which go back, about 1900 years. So there's a sea change that has happened, and I think one of the things that is lost in the discussion about Israel-diaspora relations is, what does that mean? To think when you're 5% of the world, it's going to be the same relationship when you're the largest Jewish community in the world, I think people are kidding themselves. And it's a very vibrant community and a wealthier community than it once was, where you have many challenges, but we are in a different place, Israel, than it was 70 years ago. So if I look ahead 30 years to the 100th anniversary of the state, I would expect, not just because of Aliyah, but actually because of a very high birth rate within Israel, which is very high. It's actually the highest in the developed world. It's almost 3 children. We're doing our part. I have 5 children, so I've contributed to Israel's demographic race. But I would expect that Israel would be well over 50%, probably closer to 60%, and I think that can be very good because we will be a center. And I think the United States will be another important center of Jewish life, and there'll be a few other centers around the world, and we need to strengthen that. But the center of Jewish life in the next few decades, and I hope forever, frankly, I think the center of Jewish life will increasingly become Israel, and what that means for Israel is that we were the recipient of so much from diaspora Jews for so many decades. Now that we have become the center of Jewish life, now we have to invest in you. We have to invest in the diaspora. We have to help you pass along this strong, it could be Jewish education, it could be Jewish identity, a connection of Israel. We have a responsibility because in the Jewish world, we are in this together. And each one has to give what he can, and I think Israel will take, and I hope it will, a stronger and stronger role in strengthening the Jews around the world and thereby helping to secure the Jewish future.
Absolutely. I didn't realize how many brothers and sisters I have around the world, not from the same parents, of course. I'd like to end on a more personal question. You're originally from Miami. Wondering what it was like for you, Miami-born, moved to Israel, came back representing Israel, setting foot in the Oval Office, representing the state of Israel, and maybe you can share with us how frequently that happens.
Frequently going into the Oval Office? Well, Oval Office is fairly rare, but I've probably, I guess around 20 times or so I've been to the Oval Office. The first time I went actually was President Bush. And I went with Natan Sharansky. We had written a book. It's actually Natan's ideas. I just turned his Gulagian English into something Americans could read. And Bush read it and then invited us into the meeting. And it's a very powerful thing to walk into the Oval Office because it's the place, the most powerful person, in the world. And you feel this great sense of responsibility. And I remember in that first meeting, which was about 15 years ago, thinking to myself, well, what do I want to say to the President of the United States if I have that opportunity? And I remember in the months ahead, Israel was being attacked as being this racist, genocidal country. This is not new, none of the stuff you read and about democracy collapsing in Israel. This is a very old story. And I remember there was, again, the libels against Israel. And I remember telling President Bush, I said, you see, we're called an apartheid nation. Israel's the one country in the history of the world that has taken blacks out of Africa to freedom. That was my first visit. I was not a sitting ambassador. The first time I presented my credentials was to President Obama in 2013, and I had met President Obama probably a dozen times before, and half of those time in the Oval Office with Prime Minister because I was an advisor to him before. But this is when I went in, and it's also an emotional experience because you get to represent your country. And I walked in with my wife, who had not met him, and she was carrying our daughter, who was then 6 months old, and her name is Golda. And I said, President Obama, this is my wife Rhoda, and it's my daughter Golda. I said, it might be the first time in 50 years that there's been a Golda in the Oval Office. He said to me, yours is younger and prettier.
But maybe that's a secret we should keep in this room.
I'll keep a secret what I told him, but...
Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts today, for being here.
Thank you all. Thank you for your support.
JNF.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Ambassador Dermer. What an honor it is for me to thank you for your insights and your leadership today. My name is Barbara Summer, and I sit on JNF's National Board of Directors, and I'm a member of the World Chairman's Council and Chairwoman's Council. As a show of our tremendous gratitude, I'd like to present you with a special gift. You don't get the blue box this year.
I have to say, that blue box is probably the best gift I have gotten as a sitting ambassador. Fantastic.
This year, the Jewish National Fund launched our Be Inscribed project, which gives every person the ability to participate in the sacred act of writing a Torah. We're honoring you, Ambassador Dermer, with the Parshat Shmot. In this Parshat, Moshe, one of the greatest leaders in history, is born. He was the perfect blend of strength, compassion, firmness, and the ability to compromise. The greatness of a leader is determined by their ability to be firm when necessary and accommodating when necessary as well. You are an example of such leadership, and we are so grateful that you are Israel's ambassador to the United States, and we're grateful for your friendship.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Honored to meet you. And now, please turn your attention to the screens to learn more about this special opportunity.
Are you looking for that perfect gift? The one thing you know that they won't have. Bet you never thought it would come from the top of Mitzvah. And the best part is, you don't even have to leave your living room. Now you can honor someone you love and participate in the sacred act of writing a Torah. You can go online and choose a letter, word, chapter, verse, or more in a Torah being written right here in Israel on top of Masada. Beautiful certificate will be sent, signifying the link to our ancient past and be something that they can keep forever. The gift represents our connection to a 2,000-year-old legacy, one of perseverance, bravery, and commitment. It was right here on Masada that the Jewish people made a united stance. It is Masada that is a symbol of courage. And it's here today that a scribe sits writing new Torahs for Jewish National Fund's Be Inscribed projects. It's the ideal gift for births, bar and bat mitzvahs, birthdays, engagements, weddings, anniversaries, and other milestones in life.
I had a parsha inscribed in honor of the birth of my grandchild, and my daughter and son-in-law were so excited about the fact that they now have this strong connection with Masada, with Judaism, and with the land of Israel.
It's my son's bar mitzvah coming up, and I'm going to buy him a parsha. He's not really very excited about it, but it's important to me. And one day when it's hanging on his wall, he's going to be excited about it, and he'll appreciate it as I do now.
I think JNF Be Inscribed is an amazing gift. I think it's a great thing to give for a wedding, for an engagement gift, anything to your friends. It's a great, unique opportunity to give something that has meaning and is important.
Call or go online today, jnf.org/Be Inscribed. 1-800-542-8733.
There you go. First time in front of a mic. I was going to say, wow, there are so many of you out there. It's like, whoa. But this is such a great opportunity to be part of something so unique and special. My name is T. Lungwitz. Everybody calls me T. Please do. I am a proud member of JNF's World Chairman Council, President Society, King Solomon, and the Circle Sapphire Plus Society. It is such an honor for me to be able to introduce to you Elan Carr, the U.S. Special Envoy to Monitor and Combat Anti-Semitism. Special Envoy Carr is impressive on so many fronts. Not only is he a district attorney, but he's also an Iraq war veteran. And we thank you so much for your service. He is also a former AEPI international president and former board member of Operation Gratitude, an organization that forged strong bonds between Americans and the military and the first responders through volunteer services projects. Please join me in welcoming Special Envoy Carr.
Thank you. Hello, JNF. Governor Hogan, Ron Dermer, my friend, our great ambassador from Israel to the United States. How great is Ron Dermer, leader of the Jewish people. Janie, Gary, thank you for your co-chairmanship. Saul, Dr. Lizzerbram, thank you for your leadership of this amazing organization. And last but not least, to the amazing CEO of JNF, my friend and my AEPI brother, Russell Robinson. By the way, not just a great CEO, not just a great CEO of a great organization, but really one of the deans of the Jewish world. How lucky are we to have you on the side of the good guys. I am so proud to be here before an organization that I love so dearly. In its 118th year, is my math right? Chai plus 100, that's pretty good. Don't worry, I won't wish you ad 120. I won't say that. Think about it, 118 years. Think about the impact that JNF has made. Providing vital Jewish education, supporting Aliyah, developing towns and cities in the land of Israel, including most recently Beersheba. So many other projects that are deeply moving and deeply important. And then, of course, there's the trees. Yes, trees. You know, Michal said before in our conversation with Ambassador Dermer about Israel making the desert bloom. And yes, right? We all know that line. You can't talk about the miracle of modern Israel without talking about how it made the desert bloom. But who made the desert bloom? It wasn't just the chalutzim and the pioneers and the kibbutzim and the moshavim. It was JNF. It was JNF that made the desert bloom. One of the great forestation projects in the history of the world. And that's the kind of impact JNF makes, which is why I was so proud in my former capacity as international president of AEPI to lead AEPI's effort to partner with JNF, whereby the students of AEPI raised and donated $100,000 to JNF. Think about that. Young people raising money and investing in the future of the Jewish people. How moving is that? And that's the kind of allegiance and that's the kind of passion that JNF inspires, which is why I'm so incredibly proud to stand before you today in my new capacity and bring you greetings from the President of the United States and from my boss, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. I'm honored, thank you. I'm honored to hold this office of America's top diplomat fighting anti-Semitism on behalf of the most philo-Semitic country in the history of the world, which we still are with all of our problems, and on behalf of an administration committed in unprecedented fashion to the fight against anti-Semitism, to the protection of the Jewish people throughout the world, and to support for the State of Israel. Unprecedented. And that brings me for our topic today. I'm so glad, Gary, Janie, that you began by talking about the excruciating anniversary that we commemorated 2 days ago. 2 days ago, I was at Ground Zero in New York, remembering with anguish Nearly 3,000 Americans murdered 18 years ago and 2 days ago. But it bears reflection who it was and what it was that took the lives of so many of our fellow countrymen and women. The Islamic terrorism that took their lives is an ideology of hatred defined centrally and essentially by anti-Semitism, which drives home the point, especially poignantly this week, that the fight against anti-Semitism isn't only about protecting Jews. By the way, if it were, dayenu, it's reason enough. It's reason enough to spare no effort in taking up this cause, but it is not only about Jews. Anti-Semitism, that ancient, relentless human sickness, is history's greatest barometer of human suffering. President Trump, at every opportunity, calls anti-Semitism a vile poison. He talks about the vile poison of anti-Semitism. And that's exactly what it is, because every society that has imbibed this poison rots to its core and produces human misery at a level that defies description. Europe understands that lesson all too well. And when we saw those buildings collapse in New York, we see what this cancer means for all of society. And this cancer is spreading. We meet at a time of crisis where anti-Semitism is rising only 75 years since the Nazi crematoria have cooled. We see Jews attacked on the streets of Europe, Jewish synagogues vandalized. Vandalism occurring not only in Europe, but in Crown Heights and in Los Angeles. The internet is boiling over with anti-Semitic hatred. Textbooks in some countries allied with the United States, I'm not talking about Iran, allies, are still today inculcating Jew hatred in kids. And of course, here in America, yes, the most philo-Semitic country ever, we had Pittsburgh and we had Poway. What is going on? The source of this tsunami is three. It's the anti-Semitism of the ethnic supremacist far right, the Israel-hating radical left, and militant Islam. Think about that. Three ideological worldviews as different from one another as can possibly be imagined. Three ideologies, by the way, that should hate each other more than they hate anything else on earth. And yet they're united in their hatred of the Jewish people. Well, let me tell you that our operating principle in the work that I and my staff do is that we don't rank Jew hatred. Jew hatred is Jew hatred. And we fight it no matter what ideological clothing it wears. Who cares if it comes from radical Islam or from the radical right or from the radical left? It's all evil. It's all despicable. And it is all dangerous. And that's why in my very first trip as special envoy, I visited Eastern and Central Europe to confront the so-called problem of the right. Countries where far-right movements, not in government, let me say very importantly, but far-right movements, are hearkening back to their Nazi past and terrifying Jewish communities in those countries. I spoke at the funeral of Lori Kay, Zichronah Livracha, murdered in a synagogue near San Diego on Shabbat because she was Jewish. 6 months to the day after 11 were murdered in Pittsburgh, both by far-right ethnic supremacists. And at that funeral of Lori, I declared, not only on behalf of my boss, but on behalf of the president and the entire administration, that, and I was authorized to say it, we are at war with these white supremacists. We are at war with them because they threaten not only Jews, they threaten the very fabric of this country. They are as un-American as we can possibly imagine. In fact, our founding fathers who built this country fled precisely that kind of primitive, old world hatred, the holy wars, the ethnic cleansing, to build this great land of new opportunity. And then radical Islam, with which I started my remarks tonight. In 1 month, I'm excited to report I will be going to the Gulf to have candid conversations with our friends and allies there. You see, today, we have more chance to make gains in the fight against anti-Semitism in the Arab world than ever before, because of the Iranian threat and because of regional realignment. And so I'll be going to the Gulf, and I'll be telling our Arab friends that now is the time. Now is the time to stop doing Iran's work for Iran, and to finally start to teach philo-Semitism and not anti-Semitism. And lastly, I want to talk to you a little bit about the third source of anti-Semitism, and that's the anti-Semitism of the Israel-hating far left. This is often called the new anti-Semitism. But I'm here to tell you that there's nothing new about the so-called new anti-Semitism. It is the same old primitive Jew hatred, just repackaged in new form. In fact, every manifestation of traditional anti-Semitism recurs in the so-called new anti-Semitism in precise recreation. Look at the blood libels. Right? Throughout the ages, Jews bake matzah with the blood of Christian children. Blood libels then, blood libels now. That Israel is an apartheid state, a genocidal regime. That Israel infects, if you can imagine it, printed. That Israel infects Palestinian children with viruses. Blood libels then, blood libels now. How about the isolation of the Jew in the community? The Jew is the outsider, not one of us, not legitimate. Well, in the new anti-Semitism, you have the Jew among the nations, the Jew among the countries, outsider, not legitimate. The project of its very creation being questioned. You have that then, you have that now. How about rhetoric? Same rhetoric. A Jewish leader in Europe recently was called a dirty Zionist, as though the substitution of the word might confuse us as to what is actually meant. You have the same economic boycotts. We all have seen the pictures of the brown shirts in front of Jewish shops, kauft nicht bei Juden. What is the BDS movement if not that? Don't buy from the Jew among the countries. And that's why the German Bundestag, and let me thank Germany publicly, the German Bundestag voted that BDS is anti-Semitism and is reminiscent of the Juden boycotts of the 1930s. Thank you, Germany, for acknowledging the truth. And yes, thank you, Governor Hogan, for making Maryland a leader in the fight against this new anti-Semitism. You have the same obsessive, compulsive, pathological focus with the old anti-Semitism and the new. The same insane focus. You know, a kid at a prime university in the United States gave me an answer sheet to his math class. It says, you know, I have a copy still. The derivative of so-and-so is such and such. The integral of such and such is so-and-so. And then it says in the middle, another day in the occupied Palestinian territories, Zionist forces murdering children. Then it goes back to math. The kid who gave this to me said in a voice with exhaustion, said to me, in math class, I can't even escape this? I can't even run away from this in math class? That's right, you can't. Because like the old anti-Semitism, the so-called new anti-Semitism has the same sick, pathological focus on Jew hatred. And finally, another similar feature is blaming the Jew for the anti-Semitism. This is as old as anti-Semitism itself. Do you know that even Kristallnacht was blamed on something a Jew did, and something real, no blood and matzah this time. Kristallnacht was blamed on the assassination of a German diplomat by a Jewish kid, Herschel Greenspan. But just because the Nazis claim that Kristallnacht was a response to a thing a Jew did doesn't mean we're so gullible as to believe it. We understand that that Kristallnacht was part of the Nazi strategy of destroying the Jewish people. Well, so too in the new anti-Semitism. The sick hatred of Israel is always justified by something Israel does, fictionally or actually. A building project here, a military operation there. But just because the haters of Israel claim that their words and actions are a response to something Israel does, doesn't mean that we're so gullible as to believe it. We need to understand that Israel hatred is part of their strategy of destroying Jewish sovereignty and thereby the Jewish people. And so, same thing then, same thing now, nothing new about this dressed up fig leaf of anti-Israel anti-Semitism. And that's why we have to fight all three. But I'm here to tell you that this anti-Semitism that has become so dominant on the college campuses is actually starting to work. Michal asked Ambassador Dermer about why Jewish kids in college are less connected today to Israel. By the way, that's true. A survey recently done shows that Jewish kids in university today in the United States are less supportive of Israel than ever before, more inclined to sympathize with Israel's enemies. And the crisis in the Christian evangelical community is that we're losing the young people to Israel. A pastor just said to me, we raise our kids to be pro-Israel as a matter of faith. Then we send them to college and they come back turned. I was at a pro-Israel rally. A Christian volunteer ran up to me, a kid. He said, you know, I'm here to volunteer. I love Israel. I said to him, I have a question for you. Is it true that young evangelicals are less supportive of Israel than the last generation? He said, oh my goodness, it's all around us. It's absolutely true. I said, tell me, Matthew, why is that? You know what he said to me? He said, because we also go to college. We also hear it all the time. The 24/7 indoctrination against the Jewish people in Israel. And yes, even in math class. Now, just in case any of us here in this room are tempted to think that the effects of this might be short-lived, that this might be relegated to that other world of the campus, not to our world, well, let me tell you about the most disturbing meeting I've had in the 6 months I've been on this job. I met with an MP of the UK Labour Party who walked out of the Labour Party because this MP said, I will not sit at the same table with anti-Semites. Very brave. And in a meeting, this MP said to me that this disaster that we have in England all started on the campuses. And we did nothing because they were only students. And then it moved into the Labour Party. We did nothing because it was just the far left fringe. And today they won and we lost, and I no longer have a political party anymore. And I want you to know my hair stood on end. And I'm telling you this, my friends, because JNF is second to none in its impact and in its vision. And I'm here to tell you that now is the time, not next year, not next month. We might not have a shot. Now is the time to confront this and fight this scourge, and to do it arm in arm and shoulder to shoulder. All the Jewish people, because whatever our differences are on politics and on policy, those differences don't matter a wick. When it comes to this fight, we're good at disagreeing on all kinds of things, but when it comes to our safety, when it comes to the safety of our children, there can be no disagreement. We fight this together. As it is said, the Jewish people stood at the foot of Mount Sinai, ish echad belev echad, one body with one beating heart, nothing less than that level of unity. Said to be, by the way, the prerequisite for receipt of the Torah at the Har Sinai. Nothing less than that is what we need to fight, this epic battle of our day that threatens our societies, not only our people. If we can do that, if each and every one of us committed to JNF goes out and becomes an emissary for Jewish unity, an ambassador, and preaches this message of Jewish unity in every synagogue of every denomination, at every JCC and every JCRC, so that everyone hears the message and everyone understands our obligations to each other today. If that happens, then we will together build Tikkun Olam b'Malchut Shaddai. And we will build that better world that our children and grandchildren so richly deserve. Thank you, JNF, for everything you do. Thanks for having me. And Chazak u'Baruch.
האהבות הראשונות שלי מתוקות, המתוקות האחרונות שלי משונות, לא מבינות שאצלי אהבה זה כבר פוסק.
Lon, thank you for those passionate remarks and all that you do. I am Alan Dubrow, First Vice President of JNF National Board, proud member of the World Chairman Society and the King Solomon Society. At this time, everybody is thinking that I'll be presenting Ronald Lauder. Well, Ronald, we have to share with the world. Ronald travels the world on behalf of all Jewry, and this time he could not make it. So he sends his regrets and his regards. But this is what you have when you have Ronald, and I even had 2 pages of resume from Yale, and I studied that so hard. At this time, Gary Kushner, please come up. And I just would like to prepare everybody, take out a handkerchief or a Kleenex. Thank you.
I don't think Alan was suggesting that you cry because I'm up here. But I appreciate your kindness, Alan. Thank you, Alan. This is a story of a dream come true. Last year at the opening plenary of our conference in Phoenix, we had the privilege to hear the personal story of Marlee Matlin, Academy Award-winning actress and activist. Marlee also spoke about her recent visit to Israel. Take a look.
Near the end of my visit, I had an opportunity to visit the Tel Nof Air Base in southern Israel, where I witnessed Israelis with varying disabilities, deaf, blind, those with autism, working with a program supported by the JNF called Special in Uniform. Giving those individuals the same opportunity to fulfill their potential, serve in the armed forces, and to be accepted into society regardless of the barriers that they face. Could you ever imagine that here in the United States, a person who is deaf or blind or a person with autism could never serve in the armed forces here? And that's something I hope we can look forward to someday here. But thanks to programs like Special in Uniform, supported and sponsored by the JNF, I was able to see that in Israel and that no one was left behind.
In February, I was privileged to lead our Task Force on Disabilities track as part of the JNF Mega Task Force mission to Israel. We brought a delegation from the United States to see firsthand how Special in Uniform operates, and most importantly, positively affects the fabric of Israeli society. I have good news for Marlee. Special in Uniform is coming to America. Take a look.
I'm here at the Palmachim Air Force Base in central Israel. We just concluded a program where we gave out the military berets to all of the inductees into the Special in Uniform program. These are young men and women with special needs who are volunteering and eventually getting inducted into the Israeli Defense Forces. They do incredible work. The IDF here, I think, is showing the incredible value and importance of every human life, the dignity, the holiness of the human spirit, what people can accomplish with some care and attention. I'm very happy that Chris Neely was able to attend. Chris is from the great state of South Carolina, and he heads the President's Commission on Intellectual Disabilities. And he came here, and I think he saw something very important and something very valuable. And I know that he's going to head back to the United States and work hard on seeing whether this program can be emulated in the United States Armed Forces as well. You're a tremendous inspiration.
Thank you very much.
To me, not just to them, but to me too.
I hope so.
This is an incredible program, and I want to thank the Jewish National Fund for helping to sponsor Special in Uniform. It is something that we could all learn from and emulate. It's been a great experience to be here.
Today we are starting a long journey. Special in Uniform USA and Special in Uniform Israel for a joint venture that will go way above everything that we are thinking of. Lieutenant Colonel Atiyah is the executive director of a program from the Jewish National Fund called Special in Uniform, which warms my heart. Where else are you going to see 7 amazing individuals with varying intellectual and developmental disabilities sit here in the public meeting room attached to the Chesterfield County Police Department wearing uniforms?
Isn't that amazing? I want to take a moment and let this sink in. Jewish National Fund and Special in Uniform are a model for the world. This all started about 2 years ago when Chris Neely, the chairman of the President's Committee for People with Intellectual Disabilities, was looking for initiatives that encourage inclusion and employment for people with disabilities. He had never been to Israel, but liked what he heard about the country's model of inclusion and wanted to see it and learn more. So he sent a letter to Special in Uniform in Israel and got a call back from Jewish National Fund from a nice guy by the name of Yossi Kahana, who asked him, "How can we help you?" As you saw in the video, Chris joined us on the mission in February and was blown away by what he saw. Young adults with disabilities proudly wearing IDF uniforms and serving side by side with soldiers and commanders. Chris came back determined to provide young people with disabilities in the United States with the same opportunity so that they too could serve with pride. Chris was true to his word. They are making it happen. Now I'd like to call to the stage some very special people. From Israel, we have our dear friend, Lieutenant Colonel Ron Atiyah, Director of Special in Uniform, and Daniel Defour, a Special in Uniform soldier. And from the United States, please welcome Travis Akins, the CEO of Growth Through Opportunity, and David Witt, a cadet with Growth Through Opportunity. This is an incredible moment, not only for Special in Uniform, but for Jewish National Fund and the advancement of equality for all, and this is just the beginning.
Please welcome to the stage Rebecca Tao to lead us in the Hatikvah and the Star-Spangled Banner.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you to all of our speakers for joining us in the opening plenary of the 2019 National Conference. We have a full schedule, so make sure to refer to your program for all the details for the weekend. And just a quick announcement, Kabbalat Shabbat Services will be held at 6:15. For the egalitarian service, please go to the Penn Quarter AB. And for the traditional, the room is Declaration AB. Both rooms are on the floor 1B, which is where you registered. Shabbat dinner, which is by reservation only, will be held in this room at 7:15. Thank you all. See you later.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please enjoy the rest of your day.